It's really a good topic because receiving, I think, is one of the most powerful aspects of Reiki. And it is also one of the greatest weaknesses many of us have, is our ability to receive. And so it was a lesson that I learned years and years ago as a chronic and compulsive overgiver. And always before Reiki, the overgiving was coming from my own life force. And it was really a genuine and natural way of being. I still love giving. What I didn't know was that I had the imbalance of not receiving. So, in this group, we've been doing a lot of talking about how we use Reiki journeys to understand information, to go into other levels of consciousness, connect with spiritual beings, spiritual guides, and connect with our own divine guidance. And so in one of those Reiki journeys years ago, Kuan Yin, who is the goddess of mercy and compassion, she's an Eastern goddess, was teaching me. She's always back here. This is my altar back here. And she has been teaching me over the years about receiving, and talked about how receiving has been actually trained out of us, in the belief that it is better to give than receive, creating a condition of many people both only knowing how to give, and also the giving coming from our own life force energy and our own output. And which is what I was doing, which is what was causing me to be depleted, including my friends. I remember a friend of mine saying, I can never do anything for you or give you anything because you just don't really allow it. And of course, I'm not at all aware of all this dynamic within myself. So it was one of the first things that I learned about Reiki when I received Reiki attunements. And it was also one of the reasons that when I was guided by my horse to receive Reiki attunements, I procrastinated. And I didn't know then what I know now, that it was because I didn't have a belief that I could receive something like Reiki. It was really, for all the belief systems I was willing to investigate, it was one of them that was really hard for me. The idea that someone could give you an attunement, it could be simple, and that you receive that connection, because I always thought it had to be hard work. Anything that I wanted had to be hard work. See a lot of head shaking. And particularly with, at the time, I don't know that I knew that Reiki would be such a deep spiritual path, that it would, give me access to my inner truth the way that I know now. And that was so much of what I was learning to receive, was the energy to get deeper into myself. I thought I was receiving Reiki to heal my horse, who had gone lame. And for those of you that may be new, when I asked him why he went lame, which meant he had a leg injury that, and he was only 5 years old, my lifetime dream horse. And he said to me that he went lame to deliver me to my power to heal. And he showed me putting hands on him. And I knew enough about Reiki to know that's what he was telling me. But I actually had the idea that it had to be hard work if I was going to do any kind of spiritual practice, if I was going to connect in, and certainly to do any kind of healing work with it. So after I received Reiki, it had a pretty immediate effect, except that I didn't understand the effect in the moment. And the effect was that I did receive it through an attunement. And it just blew my belief system. Like, I thought, wow, if this is real, what else is true? And so it really sent me on a journey of greater understanding. And it's taken years to understand the receiving part of Reiki energy. So initially, what it helped with was what we talk about so much in this group is empathy, where you can feel the feelings of others, or if you are giving, that I was doing everything from my own life force energy, my own personal output. And so then I learned with Reiki to let the Reiki energy flow through me. At first, I learned that by doing sessions, because in the 2000s, that's kind of, Reiki wasn't taught as much as a daily practice as it is now, or the way I certainly use it as a life management tool. But then I learned about the receiving through the giving sessions, and I could experience that. And I could finally separate what was theirs from what was mine. And I didn't have that empathic connection. So then, as I was going through that process of understanding the nature of Reiki energy, which for me was a daily fascination, like, what is this? How does it work? What do I do with it? What else is there? So it was a daily fascination. One of the things that I would say is, back then, I kind of had an absence of the questions I wanted to ask. I didn't even know what questions to ask to understand more about the energy. That also took a long time, and to learn to receive the questions that I needed to ask, or to hear myself with the questions that I needed to ask. So that's when Kuan Yin, pretty early in my Reiki, working with Reiki, and of course shamanism too. I want to make sure I include that this is also part of my shamanic experiences and training. But that's when Kuan Yin came in one of the journeys, in one of the really powerful healing journeys for me. And she was telling me how I was, and this is all, an internal knowing of the telling. I'm not a clairaudient. I don't actually hear the words. Once in a while I do, but it was that inner knowing of what I was hearing. And so what she said was that, I was an overgiver, and that the teaching of it is better to give than receive was something that had become so cellular through generations and through lineages, that it was kind of an automatic way of being for many of us that have that nature to begin with. And so she was explaining how the balance came through an equal level of receiving, and was showing me how blocked I was in receiving, and that I actually really just didn't know how. In the bigger picture, in the smaller picture I did, but this conversation generated, Joe, from the comment of somebody saying, oh, you're awesome, and you immediately go, oh wait, it's not me, type of a thing. And it's hard to receive a compliment. It's hard to receive help without asking for it. It's really hard to ask for it and then receive help. So anyway, what she said was that in the archetypal energy of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, in the creation source of the energy, that the divine masculine creates through giving, like the sun gives to the earth and the earth creates life. The earth receives the light of the sun and then creates life. And how receiving is the energy of the divine feminine. And the divine feminine creates through receiving. And so both energies of life force are necessary for us. And she was clear that it's not gender based on the earth in the, in the totality of that, but it is because everyone needs the balance of the giving and the receiving. It's part of our nature. And so Reiki energy has shown me that I think it's actually one of its original instructions from creation, is that we receive it. It is simple. It is available to everyone. We don't have to earn it, deserve it, work hard for it. We just simply have to really, even when I say invite it, it's already here. And so what we are doing when we activate the Reiki energies within us is we are receiving that external source of life force energy that is completely balanced in the giving and the receiving, the masculine, the feminine, all of the different contexts that you can, identify that with, is that the energy itself, I think it's part of why it has evolved through its history the way it has. It's part of its nature is to teach us how to receive. And it's been life-changing for me, but it has also been something that I have actively had to include in my languaging, in my intention, in my thought process of when I have those immediate, like, oh, to move into receiving, and not only getting through the allowing of it, but really just letting that energy come in. And for me, the way that I have done that and where it has evolved in the nature of how Reiki works is, for instance, I had some things, holidays can be stressful. I had 20 people at my house. My lasagna turned out horrible. Like, Robyn's smiling because it's just true. And so I had decided to do lasagna because that's something I'm usually successful with. It was not. And I worked really hard on it. But I received all of the thank yous, all of the gratitude for this big glop of dinner that was running all over the plates.
We just needed to rebrand and call it lasagna soup. That
Yeah.
would have been what because it tasted good. That would have been the right call.
Yes. Yeah, she said we should have just poured it in a pot. I've always said, my best cooking style is put it in a pot with water.
Yeah.
And, I am very, very Irish, in that way. And so just put it all in one pot, put water in it, put the spices in it, the flavorings, and I'm really good at that. So
that was the biggest mistake that we made, is just to not pivot and rebrand the dinner.
yes.
You should have known.
Crock-pot.
Anyway, sorry, Colleen.
Anyway, no, it's really funny. It was really funny. But anyway, so during different times, and I wasn't stressed about the food. It was like we had so much food always, and really blessed by that and in great gratitude for that. But there were stressful moments, of course. And so what I did with that, back to how I actually use Reiki daily, is I realized quite a while ago, I don't have to figure it all out. If I just take a moment and receive Reiki, and you can pick whatever symbols, whatever, however you want to do that. It can be on the fly, it can be for a length of time, it can be somewhere in between, however that works for you. Sometimes for me, it truly can just be place my hands on my heart, close my eyes, and I receive. And I like to work with the Holy Fire Master symbol. Also, the Corona symbols are really, really helpful in some of those circumstances. So I'll just invite that energy, take a moment and receive it. And I say to myself, I receive, so let's say I receive holy fire. I receive the power symbol. I receive Nosa. I receive Shanti as peace. And then a lot of times right now, one of the ones we're going to work with today is Kriya, which is, that how to put one foot in front of the other and take the next step on your path. So I've just learned to receive. And when I find those moments when receiving is either awkward, or maybe I don't believe what I'm receiving, or I'm struggling with receiving, I have learned to just let the energy come in and let it balance me, because it brings in the balance of where am I in this moment. And so it's amazing how quickly it can do it, shifting from trying to figure a situation out into clarity about it. So one of them was I got triggered by a text I got. And so I immediately noticed how I got triggered by it. And I, tried to navigate through it, and, blah, 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 went through the looped thought and all of it, the annoyance, and decided I didn't want to be annoyed. It was like not that annoying anyway. It was minor, which was also fortunate. And so I just remembered, stop, take a moment, breathe, receive. And I let the energy come in. And what I realized in that moment was it wasn't about the other person. It was about me, and that I could let the energy come in and address whatever that trigger was. Also observe that it wasn't really triggerable, and that I probably was even making it up about what was being said to me. And I didn't have to even spend time on it. It was almost in a flash of understanding and shifting, because the energy will actually do it for you, which is very different. Well, let's say it's not very different. We're also applying skills, right? There's all parts of this that has skills, choices, etc. But now you actually have an energy that can help you get to those skills. It can help you quickly shift into a solution mindset. Now, in that example, I'm giving it as a solution to something that was problem solving for me. But I also use it equally in innovation, creation, the things I'm fascinated by, interested in, curious about. So even, for instance, thinking about like, what are the things we're going to talk about here? And of course, like this, this came up from a comment Joe made, not something that we have a pre-idea about or, pre-plan about. So anyway, that's how the energy works on a daily basis and how you can apply it. We use the term a lot, applied spirituality. How you can actually apply it. Of course, we know that Reiki is also an amazing system of healing others in like a Reiki session style. But I know for myself, I was so trained originally that was the use of Reiki. It took me years to understand that it actually is a daily application of the energy. And the more I allow myself to use it the way it's applicable to me, the more I understand it, the more beneficial it is. And for me, healing the hard work dynamic that is so ingrained and I'm so grateful for. I am very grateful that I have a really strong work ethic. I'm grateful for my ancestry that gave me that, the gifts that I've learned from them, my parents that I learned from them. But also, I was noticing yesterday that, how much I had to work through it yesterday to allow myself to not be in, I've got to get up and get my work done. So it's like, okay, that balance again. So anyway, long discussion about receiving. I know we talk about it a lot, but I know for myself, as often as I talk about receiving, I can hear it again. Because for me, it's that strong of a like empowerment of understanding that I can continue to receive at greater levels. And I know I've shared this story too, but I'll just add to it that was one of the things. I wrote an article called Reiki and the Art of Receiving. And during the time Nelson Mandela was at the end of his life, it was about in June through December when he actually passed, and so many people worldwide were praying for him. And as I was engaged in that also, I heard from the beings of the light that I work with that people were praying and sending the prayers outward, but that they did not know how to receive the answers to the prayers personally. And so I'm going to read something that someone sent me, and I don't know where this quote came from. It's perfectly okay to talk to yourself, and it's perfectly okay to answer yourself, but it's totally sad that you have to repeat what you said because you weren't listening. And so that quote to me makes so much sense because I think it's part of the receiving. And I think that it's part of what Reiki is doing. We, those of you guys have been here a long time, so and many of you are in the Next Step Reiki classes that we teach. They're, upcoming, they're year-long classes that have a 3-year training. And ultimately, what I've learned through all of it by teaching this is that what Reiki is doing is teaching us how to hear from ourselves and receive our own guidance. We receive guidance from external sources for sure, as I've been explaining with Kuan Yin and these beings talking about receiving, that I receive that. But I also have my own divine guidance, my own human guidance, my own inner guidance. And so receiving from myself really is where it all starts. And what happens with that is it takes you into the ability to be able to hear yourself. And that to me is one of the biggest healings that Reiki is doing, is teaching you how to listen to yourself. Hear yourself, listen to yourself. You know, most of us still, I can say all of this, but I can still either resist what I hear myself say to me, or I cannot hear it, or I can, like in the example of with my horse, I heard the instruction. Absolutely. He went lame to deliver me to my power to heal. And I knew he meant Reiki. And it took me about 8 months and another really strong message for me to actually follow through with it. And then years of listening to the guidance that I received from that external source to understand the guidance I was receiving from myself also, and what that all means. And then how Reiki energy actually does that. And that's why I know many of you have heard me talk about this over and over again. But again, for me, even saying it over and over again brings me new levels of understanding what that means. And it's a bit of an intention setter, like, you know, setting the intentions of saying yes to receiving that Reiki energy that then connects me to receiving the ability to hear myself, as well as the external sources that are around me. Intuition, imagination, insight, inner truth, inner authority, inner guidance, all of those things. Innovation, curiosity. So yes, Andre, that's exactly, I would say, you know, it's so hard to describe. People ask us all the time, like, what we are teaching by teaching Reiki journey techniques that we do, even in these distance Reiki shares that we do these. They're on our YouTube channel, they're on our podcast. We talk about it all the time. But what I really can say through it all, in the development between the skill and the energy and the development, is ultimately it's teaching us to hear ourselves. Because that's when, you know, so often, so many of us were really raised not to hear ourselves and not to be heard. And that is, and have had difficulty being heard even by our people, but then being heard even in a, you know, community, being heard. But what I really understand now is it's how do we hear ourselves? That's really what we're lonely for. The loneliness sometimes of feeling unheard starts with being unable to hear ourselves. And so on the surface, we can say, you know, I can't hear myself think. But it's also, I can't hear myself feel. I can't hear myself, or sometimes the hearing is so loud in one area, you can't hear in the other areas. And that's why we talk a lot about whole body listening, like really activating. And that's another thing that Reiki energy automatically does, is it will automatically activate your chakras. And each chakra has a perspective about you. You are receiving perspectives through it. You are also experiencing your own perspective. What I've seen in my sessions is when chakras are out of balance or unaligned or feeling like they're not aligned, or our colors get really depleted in our chakras. One chakra can be so loud, it drowns out the guidance of all your other perspectives. So your root chakra is going to give you one perspective. Your second chakra gives you another perspective. Your third chakra gives you another one. Each one has it. And what we've done is talked about it with, and this is general, very general. The first lower chakras are your human guidance. What do you know as a human being about your life right now? You know, from your skills that you've learned in your life, the things that you need to know to create, to innovate, to manifest, to live your life. The middle chakras are your inner guidance, and they go into your inner guidance, and that goes into that gut instincts. On the human level, it's your instincts, your intuition, your imagination. On the soul level, now you're going deeper into what your soul's knowledge is, your soul's wisdom, what you came into this life with. And that knowledge from other lifetimes, other existences, even some of it from, again, a cellular knowledge, the gifts and talents that even of your DNA, of your, that inner guidance. It's just instinctive, or sometimes it's got to be brought to the surface. That soul's knowledge is so much of what we're doing with Reiki, is bringing it to the surface. So it's now aligned with your human guidance and your inner guidance. And then these upper chakras are your own divine guidance. You have a divine spirit that your body resides within, and you reside with, or your spirit resides within you. And it's a part of every part of your self. So you have your divine self from your infinite self that is also here, that now merges with your human spirit. Your divine nature, your human nature merge together, and all of your guidance systems are operating with an equal voice. So your human guidance gets to have a voice. A lot of times, and where this information really came in was so often in these modalities, the healing modalities, it's like, I have to get out of my head and into my heart. And that's true. But your head is often so loud because it's trying to get heard. It's trying to tell you something. And so merging it then with your heart, merging it with all of the different things, that perspectives that you have, everything aligned and everything having an equal voice. And then being able to hear it, being able to take the time to observe it. Sometimes for me, that can happen instantaneously, like my example that I just gave over the holidays of getting triggered. That was a really instant shift. Like it was like, oh, I got it. Other times it takes time. And last week we talked about the life cycles. So it also all coincides with that. But that's, to me, out of one of the greatest gifts that Reiki does, and why we dive so much into these Reiki journeys. We're going to still do one today. Oh, I better get going. On the journey is that it's about being able to hear yourself. And that's from all your different perspectives, your gifts, your talents, your capabilities, all of those parts of you that are right here inside of you. The other part that I want to share with you is I'm going to show you this. This is another tool that I use a lot, even in this journey, to really understand. I don't know why that comes up. Really understand that a lot of times I'm looking at my path from these different perspectives. What's the path ahead of me, behind me for my spiritual life? What's the path behind me, in front of me for my physical health, my personal life, my key relationships? What does my path look like for my business, my job, or my finances? This is from the book called The One Thing by Gary Keller and co-written by Jay Papasan. And what they do with this is ask a question. And this is the question we ask and simplify it by what's your next step? Is what is the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? So this graph is very simple. And Danny, maybe you could even post that on Facebook, would be a great post so people can see it. Because I use this even for something as simple as standing in the kitchen the other day with so much to do to get this lasagna soup made, that I actually thought, okay, stop. This is what I'm focused on. What's the one thing I can do right now that will make everything else easier? And it was as simple as do the dishes, like clear off the countertops. That will make my life easier. But we know in the eagle and mouse vision journey that often these questions are way bigger than that, obviously, all the way out to the farthest vision of what you can see, and then also the smallest mouse vision. So one of the things that I also heard today, as I was listening about today's topic and shown that, let's do this and let's talk about this, is that it may also take us out into the perspective of the infinite. So it may go from your infinite perspective to the eagle perspective, to your perspective, to the mouse vision, back to your own, infinite vision, eagle vision, personal vision, mouse vision. So anyway, I think these are, for me, this has really helped. Many of us in some of our classes have talked about having ADD, which I do. And so this has been really helpful for me sometimes to identify what I'm focused on and what I'm thinking about. Robyn, I see you unmuted.
I just wanted to remind you to announce about the burning bowl next week.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So that also showed today that one of the reasons to do all of this today is next week for the distance Reiki share, we're actually doing our burning bowl ceremony. And so it'll be from 9:30 probably to 11:30. We'll see what happens. And there will be journeys involved. And typically it's going to take this to the next level. This will get you started on that internal listening from all the perspectives. The burning bowl is powerful for releasing. It is also powerful for bringing in. So we will be doing both in the ceremony of what are you going to be letting go of, what are you not taking forward with you, and what do you want to bring in. We'll be using, in the ceremony, we will be using both fire for the burning bowl and also water in dissolving. So what will happen in the journey is you will be able to listen for what you are letting go of. I will be Robyn and I will be doing the burning bowl and the water dissolving for you using distance Reiki. But also, if you want to have your own burning bowl, you can do that. We put the instructions on that. That was in our last newsletter we sent out. And also it's on our website, ReikiLifestyle.com, and go to the Reiki library, both under the Reiki ceremonies and Reiki articles.